In today's video, we're keeping things simple with a quilt made from strips of fabric, and if you've been here before, you know how much we love working with strips. They're such a time saver and make quilting so much easier. Now this project is perfect for those who want great results without spending hours on tedious cutting and piecing. So let's get started. Now this quilt requires 4 different fabrics, and I'm going to go with these lovely blue fabrics, and I have 3 of them, 1 dark, 1 light and 1 medium. And for my contrasting fabric, I'm going to go with white. Now the first thing we need to do is cut some strips, and I'm going to start with my dark blue fabric and cut 5 strips that measure 5 inches by the width of the fabric. And I'll do exactly the same for the medium blue and also for the light blue fabrics. Next I'm going to cut the white fabric into strips, and these will measure exactly the same as our other strips, so I'll be cutting them 5 inches by the width of the fabric, but this time I'll be cutting 15 strips. So once all of my strips are cut, I'll end up with 5 strips of the dark blue fabric, 5 strips of the medium blue fabric, 5 of the light blue fabric, and 15 of the white fabric. And before we go any further, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, National Quilters Circle, your go-to online resource for quilting inspiration, ideas and top-notch instruction. Now if you're like me, you love learning new tips and techniques, and National Quilters Circle is the perfect place to make that happen. Now as a member you get access to their premium videos packed with expert tips and step-by-step instructions. Recently I found a video on how to make a 3D pinwheel block. It looked quite complicated, but with the video step-by-step instructions it was super simple to make, and I just love how it came out. So whether it's mastering binding tricks, exploring intricate piecing methods, or learning to get the perfect seams every time, there's always something fresh to try. And the best part, their friendly, talented instructors make it so easy to follow along. And I have an offer that is valid for new members only, so it's a perfect time to join and start exploring. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the video description will get a full year of premium membership to the National Quilters Circle for only $1.49. So the first thing we're going to do is take 1 strip of the light blue fabric and 1 strip of the white fabric, and I'll just put these other ones aside for the moment and just work with these 2 strips. So I'll take the light blue strip and I'll just trim off the selvages first, and then I'll line up my ruler along the 10-inch mark and cut. And I'll repeat that all the way down the strip, so I'll end up with 4 pieces. And now I'll take the white strip and do exactly the same. So now I have 4 pieces of the light blue fabric and 4 pieces of the white fabric. And for now I'm going to set these aside as we'll be using these later. Now the next step is going to be super easy, because all you need to do is sew a white strip of fabric to each of the remaining coloured strips of fabric. So I'll start by taking one of the dark blue strips and a white strip, and I'll just open them both out and then lay them one on top of the other and sew along the long edge with a 1/4 inch seam. So I've sewn my first strip, and now I just want to show you how I've pressed this, because this is going to help with nesting the seams so that everything lines up perfectly, or as close to perfect as you can get. So at the iron here, I just have the dark fabric facing up, and I always like to set the seam first, which is what you see me doing here. And then I'm going to open up the fabric and press along the seam line. And you can see the final result here. The seam is now pressed towards the darker fabric. Now that my first strip set is complete, I just need to take my remaining strips and repeat the process. So I'll be sewing all of the coloured strips to the white strips. So I've sewn all of the strips, and I have 5 of the dark blue, 5 of the medium blue and 4 of the light blue. And I'm just going to stack these up for the next step. And what I'm going to do now is take the first strip set, and I'm going to trim off the selvage first, and this just gives me a straight edge to work with. And then I'll flip this round so that I'm at the right angle for cutting, and I'm going to line my ruler up on the 10-inch mark. I also like to line up the ruler along the seam line so that I know that I'll get a nice straight cut. So this is my first piece cut, and I'll continue all the way down the strip, cutting each piece at 10 inches. So for the first strip set, I have 4 pieces. And now I'm going to continue doing the same for all of the remaining strip sets. So I'll subcut each strip set into 10-inch pieces. So I have cut all of my pieces, and you can see that I now have 20 blocks of the dark blue fabric, 20 blocks of the medium blue fabric, and 16 blocks of the light blue fabric. And I also have the 4 pieces of the light blue fabric and the 4 pieces of the white fabric that we cut previously. Now we are ready to lay out all of our blocks, and I'll start with the top row and lay them out like so. So I have a dark blue block, a light blue block and a medium blue block. And then I'll repeat that with a dark, a light, a medium and then another dark. And then to finish off the row, I will add one of the light blue rectangles that I cut. And now for the next row, I'll start with a medium blue and then a dark blue and then a light blue. And then I'll repeat that again with a medium, a dark and a light, and then another medium. And to finish off this row, we'll add a piece of the white fabric that we cut. Now we just need to repeat those 2 rows down the quilt, so we'll end up looking like this. And now we're ready to sew it all together, and I'm going to sew these into rows first. So I'll take the first piece and place it over the second and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. And I'll do that for all of these pieces. So I'm sewing them together into lots of 2 first. And for the last piece here, I'll sew it onto this piece. So I have them sewn together as you can see, and I want to show you how I've pressed the seams at the join here. So if I flip it over, you can see that I have pressed the seam towards the dark fabric. So if you keep doing that for every seam going forward, everything will nest together beautifully. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew all of these pieces together to complete the row. And that is my first row finished. I'm going to repeat that process with all of the remaining rows. Now that my blocks are all sewn into rows, I'll start to sew the rows together. And the only thing to be mindful of here is to match the seams, but they should nest nicely if you have pressed them the correct way. Now nesting the seams like this means that you are more likely to have your seams line up nicely. So our quilt top is complete, and I love how it turned out. Now at this point you could add borders if you wish, and I'm going to be doing just that. So you can see here I'm auditioning a few different colour combinations. I started with a dark and a medium blue border, which I quite like, and you'll notice that I have introduced a new fabric here as I had run out of the dark blue fabric, but I think this goes quite well. And then I thought I might introduce a white border, but I wasn't really fussed with that. So I finally ended up with a medium blue border at the top and bottom only, and then a dark blue border all the way around the quilt. And the reason I added the medium blue border at the top and bottom is I want to make the quilt taller. Now we'll put our border measurements on the website, so just look for a link in the description field for this video. So thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more quilting videos.